Representative Barbara Gleim, a Chinese security firm bought land in North Dakota close to a U.S. military base. What kind of concerns does this raise for you?
Raises a lot of concerns for me, and actually all of the states started looking into their own ag land purchases in recent time, just to see if we have adversaries actually purchasing our farmland in our states. Since that time, 32 states have actually enacted some form of protections for their state from foreign adversaries. Some states like Hawaii passed a law and made farmland part of their basic infrastructure, like their roads and bridges, and made it vital infrastructure so that they could protect it based off of, the health, safety, and welfare of their residents from any type of foreign entity that could potentially want to harm their residents. In my district in particular, I have the U.S. Army War College, and we really don't want any adversarial entity near any of our vital military infrastructure.
Representative, let's get back to this specific purchase in North Dakota. So what's the official position of the U.S. government on the Chinese buying this land?
The official status is in actually House Bill 1, where they are looking right now to actually enact a similar legislation that I am acting here in Pennsylvania. It's called the Ag Farmland Disclosure Act. It's going to be part of the GOP energy bill. And so they are taking a very serious look at this. Now, the adversaries, quote unquote, which are defined in my bill, align with the federal government's definition of adversarial entities. Mm-hmm. So I'm not doing anything in my bill that isn't already being recognized on the federal level.
Well, Representative, let's put it this way. What do we know about what the Chinese are in fact doing in North Dakota?
They are purchasing up farmland in North Dakota.
For what purpose is what I'm asking?
North Dakota and Utah. Actually, if you take a look on their books of what foreign entities actually own their farmland, Canada is number one, but the Chinese Communist Party is actually number two. So when people talk to me, they say, well, that doesn't sound very nice. You're excluding, people from China who are purchasing farmland here. I always say, no, it's their Communist Party. It's not an individual entity from China. It is the Communist Party who is purchasing this land, number one. And number two, they are adversarial in many respects. One is reciprocity. So we allow them to purchase in our country, but we're not allowed to purchase anything in their country.
So, Representative, it sounds like we don't have specific information about their intentions or, in fact, what they're doing with this farmland. That's what I'm trying to find out, please.
Oh, I do not have the information on what the Chinese Communist Party is doing with the farmland in Utah right now. I'm
talking about North Dakota, if there's a difference.
Oh, in North Dakota as well. I do not have that. I was at a summit recently where we talked about this. It was a work group for agriculture. It was national. And I can tell you that especially in the Midwest and the West, they are very concerned about what is happening with the purchases of their farmland in their states. Some of the reports that I've received from North Dakota and from Utah as well is that the land is being basically dormant. Mm-hmm. Some of the land is housing some livestock on those ag lands, but I don't have a specific report.
About how much land are we talking about, Representative? Does it number a few acres or hundreds of acres? Just trying to get a mental image.
Well, I can speak to Pennsylvania in particular. It's about 350,000 acres. And just in the last few years,
You mean that can be bought?
that actually has been bought by foreign entities.
Okay.
Okay. In the last 2 years, 7,700 acres have been purchased by foreign entities. The exact amount of which of those acres were purchased by entities of concern, I do not have right at this moment.
Now, you mentioned unfriendly governments as adversaries, and that made me think of an official list that does exist, and it's called the Countries of Concern. And I understand there are a whole bunch of countries on that list, and some of them are China, Russia, North Korea. How big a list is that, Representative?
It's not as big as some people would think, but Belarus is on there, Iran, like you said, North Korea, China, Iran. I believe Iraq is on there. I don't have the list in front of me, but they're pretty obvious. And but my bill actually goes a little bit further than that and says has a clause on reciprocity, because I don't believe that we should be selling our ag land in Pennsylvania to any foreign entity that does not provide reciprocity for us to purchase in their land. So if we're going to allow the purchase of farmland in our state, we should be able to purchase farmland in another country.
Representative, which unfriendly countries are buying up the most land in Pennsylvania the most often? Which countries immediately come to mind?
Well, we do have some purchased by the Chinese Communist Party. We do have some that is purchased by Iran. Not a lot. Most of our land is purchased by Canada here in Pennsylvania.
At what rate are foreign countries buying up land in Pennsylvania? How often do transactions like this happen?
Well, I can tell you right now, we are looking into that. I don't have exact data. And the reason why we don't is because we haven't kept the data. And we have title companies out there who we're hoping to partner with and to go back and see exactly who is purchasing the land or has purchased the land. And as you've seen in Arkansas, one of the remedies has been divestiture. They've asked them to divest. In Pennsylvania, we have a large hog entity that is owned by China, and that's Smithfield. Okay, Smithfield Farms is owned by China, and that is big in Pennsylvania. So I've talked to the Farm Bureau, and they said, well, what's the remedy? And I said, well, we could follow along the way Arkansas has gone and have them divest. They are an entity of foreign concern.
What's the level of transparency of these transactions anyway? How much are they required to disclose to Pennsylvania government or federal government for that matter?
I actually do not know that answer to that question either. We have been successful in looking at most of the farmland that's been purchased, the 7,750, but going back even further is going to be a challenge. Since this issue has raised, to the point that it has, and we're more aware of it, and we've been looking into it a little bit more in depth. So going back even further than that, it's going to be more of a challenge. But I'm hoping that this bill that we're introducing here in Pennsylvania will actually start talking about going forward. How are we going to be tackling this issue? We have very long-standing laws on our books, all the way back to the late 1800s, and it's good. It's a good law where only any foreign entity can only purchase up to 100 acres in Pennsylvania. Now, it doesn't say how many times they can do that. It just puts a limit on 100 acres. I always argue with some of my colleagues that 100 acres of just grass, okay, just hay in Pennsylvania yields as much as 1,000 acres in North Dakota. Okay, think about that for a second. So I am trying to change people's opinion on, how much should be purchased based off of yield, not necessarily acreage, because we are very lush and blessed in Pennsylvania with the ground that we have and what we can yield from it. So, yeah.
If an unfriendly government wants to buy land in Pennsylvania, well, there are 49 other states. What makes a parcel of land in Pennsylvania attractive to a foreign government?
Proximity, I think, to major cities, number one. Proximity to major military installations. Number two, I think that our national security could be threatened in many areas. I mean, think about this. Camp David is not that far from the line in Pennsylvania. Not to mention we have, the U.S. Army War College. We have many military installations with farmland surrounding them. So we really need to start taking a look at our state as a whole and determine, who we want to be selling our farmland to. How can we preserve more of our farmland, and whether we're getting any type of reciprocity from other countries.
And on the subject of reciprocity, Representative, I just want to make sure this is clear to our viewers. Can Americans go to an unfriendly country on the list and buy farmland there?
No, that's basically my argument. We are allowing the CCP and Iran and North Korea, in some extent, to purchase farmland in our country, but we cannot purchase any farmland in their country. And I just believe that that's inherently unfair and not right.
Have there been any public hearings on this subject? It just strikes me as such an esoteric thing to study that it would take some time to collect the facts on this.
Yes, it's going to take some time. We have not had any hearings yet. I'm hoping to get some hearings on this. We are meeting with the Farm Bureau next week on this subject. We have to be able to identify the foreign entity. How are we going to enforce this? There's an enforcement question. How are we going to define what properties are actually infrastructure related or not infrastructure related? We need clear definitions, and we need also to look into how would we divest from these foreign entities that are not very friendly or adversarial, especially right now. And how would we do that in Pennsylvania?
So how much support from your colleagues so far?
A lot of support. As soon as I put out the co-sponsorship memo, I had over 25 co-sponsors on the memo. We are going to be rolling out this bill with a package of bills. There's going to be one on artificial intelligence, and I can't remember exactly what the other one is, but we're going to be having a whole package. And then that will, once the package is introduced, we will hopefully have a hearing on this.
Representative, what does, you said that AI, artificial intelligence, there's a bill in the package, but how does that relate to what we're talking about now? Is it necessarily connected in any way?
Well, technology is definitely connected to any type of real estate purchase. And, deciding at what point in that process we are going to be identifying, the actual purchaser, and if they are connected to, a communist regime or an adversarial entity is going to be a question there. You want to protect the rights of everybody and the purchasers as well as the buyers. And so there's going to have to be a process going on there.
And on the subject in general about security, you mentioned that the Army War College in Carlisle is within your district. Tell our viewers statewide what they're doing there.
So the U.S. Army War College brings in candidates from, I think it's over 140 countries. These are men and women who are on the path to become real leaders in their countries as well as ours. Most of them are colonels or even some generals. And they get taught, basic, it's a school. They get taught basic statescraft. They get taught military, maneuvers and all sorts of things like that. They interact with my community a lot, and we welcome them with open arms. But it's not a place that we should be having a foreign adversary nearby, able to impact that in any way.
Is that possible given the real estate realities out that way?
Oh, yes. Definitely. I live on a farm. My husband raises beef, and we, as the crow flies, are about 5 miles away. Absolutely. We are in a rural area outside of Carlisle.
Tell us more about your concerns about artificial intelligence. Of course, that's a red hot topic these days, and so-called generative artificial intelligence generating unique works derived from existing works.
Yes, I mean, I'm also involved with that in education right now. It's very new. It's a scary type of concept to think about it, but it could also be so helpful. I know the military is using AI in a lot of their military, I guess their maneuvers and in some of their aircraft and things like that. But at the same time, it's probably hackable. We need to secure it. We need to make sure that what's real and what's not. So we are in some very interesting waters and times right now with technology. Yeah.
No, please continue.
Well, I just, I've gone to so many seminars on AI right now, and it's a huge topic, even within most of the 50 states. And I think that people are just trying to figure out how far they're going to actually go with AI technology, where, that stops and the human aspect comes in.
Right.
So, but in any type of foreign interaction right now, AI is of interest. It could be part of our vital infrastructure, both good and bad, and a national security concern.
So let's get back and get some closure on the bill we were talking about, adversarial governments buying up farmland in Pennsylvania. You said that you haven't had public hearings yet, but anyway, and you do have support from your colleagues. What's the next step? What's going to happen next?
Well, the next step would be we'll introduce the package of bills. Then we will figure out what committee it will be in. And I'm just assuming it's going to go to agriculture. I mean, it could go to commerce because a lot of this is under the U.S. Department of Commerce. So I would think that those would be the two areas that the bills might hit. And then we will request a hearing of the majority chair.
By the time this airs, Representative, Governor Shapiro will have announced his new budget for the state. And at this point, what would you like to see more emphasis on anyway?
In his budget?
Yeah.
I would like to see an emphasis on workforce development, for sure. He has already done a few things in agriculture. So, of course, I'm going to be looking at that. And as a member of the Education Committee, we'll be taking a look at how the Basic Ed Funding Commission will be represented in his budget. But overall, we're already at a structural deficit in our state. And I don't really want to see our rainy day fund spent down. We have $6 billion in our rainy day fund, and we are getting interest off of that rainy day fund that is actually plugging revenue holes that we have. It's doing a lot of good. We have a good bond rating right now because of it. And we don't want to lose our bond rating. So I would like to see, our taxes not be raised. And I just have a looking at the outlook that of him wanting to spend down our rainy day fund and our budget reserve, I can only see in 2025 or 2026 our taxes being raised. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be interested to see which one of his entities he wants to impact for this year. Mm-hmm. He has, like I said, some workforce initiatives in there. I do not want to see a $15 minimum wage, especially in the first year. I think that that's going to hurt a lot of businesses, at least in my district. I have a lot of small businesses, and they're telling me that is going to definitely hurt their business if they have to double it.
Yeah, the latest word is that it would go from $7.25 to $15 an hour, again, under the proposal.
Yes, I think that would be very harmful. So just to the economy in general. So, yeah, I'm waiting to hear what he has to say, but I've heard that it's definitely a spending package.
Let's get into just one more subject, Representative. It has to do with the practice of composting. And I understand you're a member of a state government work group, and you're working on the rules for composting. And first, it's not something we often talk about, so refresh us on the basics of composting before you tell us the work you're doing.
Okay. So this is mostly for central Pennsylvania. So for your viewers that are outside of the area, this may not apply to you as much. So there's two issues going on in central Pennsylvania that impact two different departments, and people get them confused. So when you compost animal waste or animals that have died, all of those rules and regulations are under the Department of Agriculture. Okay, so put that in that silo of composting, animals. Then you have what are called FPRs, which are food processing residuals. Okay, these are actual, if you have Bell and Evans and they've got chickens and they're making chicken and they have residuals from that, so it's turkey or chickens or something like that, that would be a food processing residual. That is under the Department of DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. So a lot of the residents are getting confused between the two. Okay. Now what happened is Maryland and Virginia decided to regulate food processing residuals to only allowing the spreading of them on farm fields because they are high in nitrates and can be used as fertilizer at only certain times of the year. So their manufacturing entities in Maryland and Virginia are now trucking all of that over state lines into Pennsylvania and spreading it in Pennsylvania. And it stinks. It's really putrid. And the residents are just rising up and saying, absolutely not. We are not going to take all of Maryland and Virginia's food processing residuals. So it is a problem. We have had one well in Antrim Township actually be tainted by the runoff from these FPRs, and two wells up north. They are testing a well actually right now in my district as well. There is just so much of it being spread because it's lucrative for farmers right now. And so we have to worry about the application.
So the environmental concerns are out there for effects on land and water.
That's right. Absolutely. So I just want to, make sure that people understand we're not really having that much of an issue with the composting under the Department of Ag. We are having an issue with food processing residuals in under DEP. So, and that's what we're working on. We're working on the definition of food processing residuals. We're going to try to regulate the bad food processing residuals. What I mean by bad is, you can have apple peels or something that don't smell bad and don't harm the environment or the waterways that are good. So we want to make sure that we're not harming that good processing. We just want to be able to regulate the bad. And I shouldn't even call it bad. We just need to regulate, the smell and the application and the use of it.
So when's the next time this group is going to get together? What's on your schedule, and what are the immediate goals then that you hope to realize?
So we've been meeting monthly, and our next meeting is February 29th on the food processing residuals. And we have a lot of attorneys involved, and they are going to be hopefully giving us a draft proposal of how we can regulate this for the constituents and the non-farming community in order to feel better about their environment that they're living in. I'm looking forward to that meeting greatly because we have had so many meetings and so much discussion around this. We have townships right now that have actually written their own ordinances. So the municipalities are getting impatient with the state right now and saying, yeah, well, the state takes forever, so we're just going to enact our own ordinance. And we really don't want the municipalities to get ahead of the rules and regulations. So we're working as fast as we can.
And that could lead to a patchwork of regulations, I imagine, if it's up to all the local communities.
Right. And we already have that in agribusiness right now, which is it's really a stress on businesses, especially the farming businesses, where you have certain municipalities that allow wineries, but you have others that don't, and it's just all over the place. And we don't want that to happen with food processing residuals too.
Representative Barbara Gleim, that's all the time we have. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.